May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be pleasing to you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not, says Dr. Seuss's once-ler to a child given a precious seed, the last of its kind, and a precious chance to bring life back to a dying forest. Perhaps you were born for such a time as this, says Mordecai to his adopted daughter Esther before she decides to risk her life to try to save her people. What do we do in hopeless moments? When all the trees have been chopped down and the world is a wasteland, as in Dr. Seuss's Lorax? When genocide is plotted, as in Esther? When the world seems to be falling apart? Well, we go and plant the seeds, the bits of good, life-giving power we have, whatever they are. Look for a moment at how Esther does this. We do not get much of Esther's story in our reading today, so I'm going to tell you a little more of it. Esther is an orphan Jewish girl adopted by Mordecai. Her people are in exile in Persia, their land conquered, their temple destroyed, their culture at risk. And there are power struggles everywhere. First, the king of Persia has a temper tantrum because his queen Vashti dares to defy his order to show up at a banquet and show off her beauty for him and his court. Enraged, he sends out edicts demanding that all women submit to men, dethrones Vashti, and rounds up the conquered Jewish girls and women, as well as other conquered peoples, and brings them into his harem, forcing them to complete beauty treatments and vie for his favor. Ultimately, he chooses Esther as his new queen. Stolen from her land and her home, she is now taken even from her adopted father, who advises her not to tell the king of her Jewish identity. The story doesn't tell us of the women's terror or the horrors they likely endured in becoming slaves for a volatile king and his court, but we can imagine the trauma. Esther, though now queen, exists solely at the pleasure of the king, and at penalty of death is only allowed to go to the king when summoned. Another temper tantrum ensues as one of the king's advisors, Haman, becomes enraged at Mordecai because he will not bow down and submit to his power. And he convinces the king to let him kill Mordecai and order the slaughter of all the Jewish people. Mordecai gets word to Esther of the plan and suggests that perhaps this is the reason she has come to power. She knows the limits of her power, though, and points out that she may die if she enters the king's presence unbidden, and she has not been summoned for a whole month, suggesting that perhaps she has even fallen out of favor. But after she fasts and contemplates, she gathers her courage and says she will go and make her request to the king. If I perish, she says. She arrives, and fortunately the king greets her with joy and pleasure and pledges to give her anything she wants, up to half of his kingdom. She cleverly plots and gets him and Haman to a banquet together, and then to a second one. The second night she reveals that she is Jewish, unmasks the wickedness of Haman, and reminds the king that her people have been marked for mass slaughter, cleverly appealing to his ego and pride, noting that it will damage him to have such a loss of his subjects. Haman is hanged on the gallows he had prepared for Mordecai, and the Jewish people are saved. The Jewish holiday Purim commemorates the salvation of the Jews from Haman's plot. Esther is a complex figure. On the one hand, she is queen with enormous power and privilege. On the other, she must carry tremendous grief and trauma. She had no choice in becoming queen. She is in exile. She was forced to be the king's wife. And she is a woman, so she does not even have the power to appear in her husband's presence when she wishes, on pain of death. Yet, she fasts and prepares herself and uses the little power she has to save her people, risking her life to do so. She plants the little seed that is given to her, and it yields life. She was indeed born for such a time as this. The seeds of life we each carry are not always obvious to us, nor is it always clear when and how we are to use the power we have on behalf of others, on behalf of good and life. But make no mistake, each one of us does carry those seeds. And when we encounter wastelands or violence or despair, we each have a chance to care an awful lot and plant the seeds we have. No matter how small they are, no matter how helpless we feel, each little seed matters. And together, our seeds can grow a world that just overflows with love and life. In our moments of hopelessness, we each have a choice. We can choose to train our eyes on the power of destruction or death looming always somewhere in our world and be overcome by it. Or we can look down at our hands and notice there that we hold little packets of life, little seeds, and we can plant them and tend to them. We may not wish to be the one to confront whatever struggle we face or encounter in this world. But this moment is the one that is given to us. And the power we have is the power to choose what we will plant and tend to and do with this particular moment. Now, there have been moments in my life when I simply could not see or feel the seeds in my hand, much less plant or tend to them. But always someone came in and lent me their eyes or planted goodness for me. So never be afraid to ask for that help. And never be afraid to be the one who comes alongside someone who is overwhelmed and plant goodness all around them until they see it too. As Mark says, be the one who gives the cup of water to those who thirst, not the one who heaps more weight on those who already struggle. Be the salt that makes meals rich and delicious. Be the good. And when the moment comes to use the power you have, to plant the seeds you carry, prepare your courage, risk, and know that you were born for such a time as this. Made in the image of God, a beloved child of God, you have all you need within you to overcome hate with love and turn mourning into dancing. So let's all care a whole awful lot and plant the seeds we have been given. Amen.